from the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, Outdoor Oklahoma.
Well, hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead, and today I'm joined on the banks of the Canadian River by my good friend and co-worker Michael Bergen. Michael, we're out here duck hunting today. What do you think so far?
Oh, I love it, Todd. I grew up doing a lot of hunting, but not a lot of waterfowl hunting. And so, of course, there's a lot of people that work with us and that in Oklahoma that duck hunt. And so getting the chance to go with some guys that know what they're doing, getting to shoot a little bit, hear some calling, learn a little bit about the birds, I really enjoy it. It's another way for me to get out and enjoy the outdoors and just and see what opportunities we have here. So
sure, we've had some marginal success today. Could have done a lot better if I could shoot straight, but we're
Sure.
having fun, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, it's great.
With every type of hunting, there is a level of trophy status with whatever you're pursuing, whether it's deer or turkey and getting a big long bearded turkey, or squirrels with you, or whatever it is, or especially with ducks and waterfowl in general. The trophy status is getting to shoot one with what waterfowlers call jewelry.
Yeah.
And duck hunters know what I'm talking about. That's the bands that the Wildlife Department and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and other cooperating agencies put on birds in the summertime to help us get an idea of migration routes, population numbers, all kinds of statistics. And we haven't been lucky enough to shoot a banded bird today.
No, we sure haven't.
But, it's a lot of fun. I've been on some of those, what we call roundups, goose roundups, especially in Oklahoma.
Right.
And I'm not going to tell you too much because we're going to go on a goose roundup today. But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, and it's kind of a stinky job too.
Yeah, that's right.
Have you been on a roundup?
I haven't got to do one of our goose roundups yet. I'd like to do that one of these days. I know that we have the opportunity for a lot of volunteers. We get a lot of people from our agency and other agencies to get together, like you said, and go out and do this. And so that's on my list of things to do that I want to make sure I get done and see how that process works.
Well, that's great. Let's join some of our guys on one of our goose roundups from this past summer.
My name is Josh Richardson. I'm the migratory game bird biologist with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation. One of the aspects of my job is working with Canada geese, and here recently we've been banding Canada geese. We've been working pretty well statewide. We've covered areas of northern Oklahoma, central Oklahoma, been down in the southeast part of the state, been up towards the Tulsa area, and also up in the northwest part of the state.
It was fairly successful. We're late in the molting period for them, so some of them are starting to get their flight feathers back in, starting to get where they can actually fly. So we had several fly over the fence here, but for the most part right now, they're not really comfortable flying, so just kind of push them along. As long as you don't get them too aggravated, they usually cooperate quite well. On the back of their head, neck there. When you pick them up, they won't, if they make noise, they won't honk like a goose would honk. They'll kind of have more of a squeak to them. So if you get one like that.
Goose banding involves gathering up a flock of Canada geese, aging and sexing each bird, and then placing a individually numbered metal band on one of their legs. That band, as I said, is uniquely numbered, so anytime that bird is caught again or shot by a hunter, that band can be reported and you know exactly where that bird had been at what point in time.
You fold the tail back as far as you can, and then basically use your fingers to invert that cloaca. And this one I kind of grabbed in particular because he was really big. Yeah, I got it inverted there. Nothing popped out, so it's female. So when you get it off the bander, you want to tell them what sex it is, because we differentiate these, like I say, both by age and sex.
Banding data is all collected nationwide at the U.S. Geological Survey's Bird Banding Laboratory. Data is used for a number of reasons. First off, you get some demographic and population information, age ratios, sex ratios, survival, hunting mortality rates. You also get information on harvest, distribution, and derivation. So the birds that are shot in Oklahoma, the ones that were banded, we can look back and see where those birds came from. Were they birds that were found here throughout the breeding season, or were they actually birds that have come down from further north? And also it kind of gives an idea of harvest rates for each state that we don't get through our other data sources.
Peeling back the cloaca is to sex itself, it's a male or a female. And this is going to be a juvenile female.
Right now they're bunched up. This is the time of year where geese go through a feather molt, a full body molt, so they're flightless. When they're flightless, they're obviously a little more vulnerable, so they prefer to get into larger groups, safety in numbers. All the birds that we have here that we're working today are all what we'd consider resident birds. They're here during the months of June, July, August, during the nesting and breeding season. Resident birds will be here through most of the winter. Unlike migrant Canada geese will travel up towards the subarctic, up into Canada during their breeding season, during the spring and summer months. They'll go through the same molt as our resident birds go through and everything else. And wildlife officials in the Canadian provinces are doing the same banding that we're doing on our resident birds. They're also doing those on our migrant Canada geese as well. We don't do any banding here in Oklahoma for migrant Canada geese. During the time that they're here, the birds are fully capable of flight, so they're much harder to get caught. In the past, there have been efforts to band Canada geese and other migratory birds on the wintering grounds, but it requires the use of rocket nets, and it becomes much more difficult, much more intense operation.
Yeah, as far as my job goes, this is a very interesting aspect of it, and we have a good time with it.
Bands are a very interesting and unique item. Many hunters really get very excited when they shoot a bird that has a band on it. we band just a very small fraction of the population. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, hitting a jackpot out there when you're hunting, when you shoot a bird that has a band on it. Hunters that shoot a banded bird report those bands either via the phone line. There's a 1-800 number, or now there's also a website that hunters can get onto. They tell the bird banding laboratory where they shot the bird, when they shot the bird, give some information on that. And the bird banding laboratory then sends them out information on where that bird was banded, when it was banded, who banded it. The hunter also receives a certificate of appreciation from the bird banding laboratory, and many hunters put those certificates up on their wall or puts it in a place that's special to them, in with their hunting memorabilia. The data that we then receive from the bird banding laboratory comes back to us as a fairly simple spreadsheet. It's not all that exciting, but we can then query that data and see, you know, where the bands that were put on in Oklahoma ended up being found or harvested throughout the year. We've had birds reported from as far away as southern Mexico and as close as, you know, actually on a banding area before. Doing these roundups is very much an interdivision activity. There's no way that my technician Jeff Neal and I could get all this done just by ourselves. First off, trying to get out and scout all these locations beforehand. You know, being spread throughout the state, you know, it'd take us forever to get everything checked out. And then when we're actually doing these roundups, trying to band several hundred birds at a time with just 2 people, not very feasible. So we rely heavily on our field personnel, our wildlife division, fish division, information, law, all the divisions pitch in and help out when these roundups come around. And it really makes the activity go a lot faster and a lot smoother for us. Working with Canada geese this way, getting out and catching birds, banding birds, is really an enjoyable part of my job. A lot of people think, you know, anyone that works with the wildlife department must spend, you know, the majority of their time outside. Well, the truth is we spend most of our time more in an office trying to get regulations done up, trying to, you know, answer phone calls from the public or whatever. Really getting out and getting to do some hands-on stuff is really the enjoyable part of the job. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, we really enjoy it. Doing these roundups is not just always a real pleasant experience. You hear the term, you know, being goose, that didn't come just out of nowhere. These geese, when you get them confined, they don't have teeth or anything like that, but they definitely have a bill, and they definitely still have feet and claws. Trying to get these birds picked up and moved around so you can get all the information you need from them often results in being bit or being scratched or clawed. You end up with some battle wounds from these activities, but again, it's a chance to get outside and a chance to get your hands on wildlife. So we try to take it in stride and really enjoy ourselves out there.
I've been practicing.
Well, Michael, I think I know where they get the term getting goosed from.
Right, yep.
It must have been somebody on a goose roundup.
I think you're probably right.
You know, another aspect to our waterfowl management in Oklahoma is our millet seeding program. And when we come back, we're going to get a bird's eye view of just how we go about seeding most of our lakes, right after this week's Outdoor News Report. You know, Michael is an avid squirrel hunter.
Sure.
And you probably have seen him on past episodes chasing squirrels with his dogs. But for today's duck hunt, you've had to actually buy a couple extra licenses. Tell us what you had to get.
Well, that's right. Like you said, Todd, I had to have my state hunting license and my HIP permit. But in addition to that, because we're hunting waterfowl, we had to have a state waterfowl license. And because ducks and geese are migratory, I had to have a federal duck stamp. And it's these extra licenses, the state waterfowl license and the federal duck stamp, that actually provides the funding for a lot of the projects that are specific to waterfowl.
You know, and one of those specific conservation efforts that we do in Oklahoma is a Japanese millet seeding program, which could seem pretty straightforward, just throw seeds on the mud flats, but it comes with its own unique challenges. So today we're going to follow along with Alan Stacy as he tells us about Oklahoma's millet seeding program and gives you kind of a bird's eye view, so to speak.
ODWC's millet seeding program, we've been doing this now for, my goodness, over 25 years. And it's kind of a hit and miss program, but it's really one of those neat programs that when it all works, and a lot of it's very dependent on Mother Nature, when it all works out, it can just be a big boom in terms of creating additional forage habitat for migratory birds. The plant that we seed out there on these large, expansive mudflats is Japanese millet. That's a variety that's very closely related to our native millets here in the state. And the advantage Japanese millet has, it is very water tolerant. It does very well in Oklahoma conditions, even during some drought conditions. And this plant, once it matures, it produces seed which is highly sought after by particularly dabbling ducks. And so it's a great forage base. What we try to do with the Japanese millet seeding program is we try to supplement some of those natural foods that are already out there. So, you know, we've been seeding, just completed a couple of weeks ago here in Oklahoma. We seeded around 4,300 acres. We're looking forward to waterfowl season. We've got a lot of great natural foods out there that have established themselves on some of these large, expansive core areas, along with our WDUs, wetland development units in the state.
Well, Michael, I don't know about you, but I think I'm going to have to sign up for one of Damon Springer's step classes.
I think you're right. I think you're right. You know, this is something that I haven't gotten to do a lot of, and it's something that I can definitely tell I want to get better at wing shooting.
Yeah.
You know, I got to shoot this one duck today, but I had a blast doing it and learning.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to get better and do more of it.
Sure.
For sure.
Now, did you check it for jewelry?
No jewelry on this bird today. Sure enough, no jewelry. But you know, that's a cool program that they do. And maybe one of these days, as I do more and more waterfowl hunting, I'll get some of those banded birds.
Yeah, you
so,
need both.
Yeah, that'd be really good, really cool.
Well, what do you say we start picking up decoys and heading back? What do they say? The the worst day hunting is better than the best day of working.
That's what I hear, and I think it's probably true. So yeah, that sounds like a good plan to me.
That's great. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today. If you want to connect with us and learn more about your outdoor opportunities, I'd encourage you to friend us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter as well. For Michael Bergen and everyone else at your wildlife department, I'm Todd Craighead. We'll see you right here next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.
Hey Todd, birds.